Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I'm Richard and this is Lap of the World. We have exchanged in the garage, for today at least, our 289,000 mile Acura NSX for a 2004 67,000 mile Lamborghini Gallardo so that we can tackle the small but important task of replacing a leaky auto-dimming mirror. Now, some of you may remember, if you've been around the channel for a little bit, that I attempted to start this process back in late December with a well-meaning but abortive trip to a local DIY junkyard. Now, I was able to kind of roll those dice, if you will, because the replacement manually adjustable mirror on the Gallardo, or on the early Gallardos at least, does cross-reference to a couple of lesser Audi models that you could legitimately expect to find in a breaking yard of some kind. But I was not able to achieve that in my trip. The couple of Audis they had that would have been in the correct year and model range either had the wrong interior color or were themselves equipped with auto-dimming mirrors, and I didn't really want to, make that gamble twice, given that mine has not really caused too much of an issue yet. But yeah, no, it probably wasn't the best idea. But if you were not able to find one in a junkyard like I did, or if you, there are, I'm sure, plenty of more high-end aftermarket options available. But again, if you like to ball on a budget, here is the part number. And worst case, if you can't find it in a junkyard, you can do what I did and find one that's in probably 9.5 out of 10 condition on eBay, still on the cheap. But with that being said, we need to get started and replace this. So let's get over to the car and take a look again at what we are working with. So inside the car now, we can see at least one of the telltales of the mirror that is having a problem, and that is you have this line here that is formed in this one where some of the shmoo inside has started to make a bid for freedom. Now, fortunately, in my case, I don't see much of the second telltale, in that my switches, or the finish rather, on my switch panel and climate control buttons is all still largely intact. Any damage there is to it, you can see kind of right here, that is probably more so due to, in a 67,000 mile car, probably more due to fingernail usage than leaky, possibly acidic substance. But I think you can tell down here where it has happened a little bit around the mirror switch, and that's probably where it's likely to pool in this area. And you can see where, some of that could probably be explained by abrasion, but I have a feeling what's happened is some of the fluid has gotten on this, and if it wasn't cleaned up quickly enough, has kind of compromised the integrity of the black finish, which has allowed it to be a little bit more easily abraded away. So if you're like me and you like to understand the why behind these things, well, here you go, at least at the level of understanding I was able to achieve myself. Your general auto-dimming mirror works via some electronics as well as a little bit of a neat trick to achieve its effect. It uses two light sensors, one that faces out the front, out the windshield, to tell it if it's day or night, and the other one faces backwards, and that would detect the headlights from a following vehicle. Those two inputs are fed into a circuit board and control unit that will then apply a little bit of current to what's called an electrochromic gel. Now, electrochromic just basically means that it changes color when you apply electricity to it, and in this case they can change it from kind of a lighter color to a darker color, and that gel is sandwiched in between the two kind of glass elements of the mirror. I say glass, most of the time they're polycarbonate. But in this case, that's kind of where things have gone sideways. So it does its job, but this gel in particular, whatever model or particular formulation of electrochromic gel they used in these mirrors, is what breaks down. In my understanding, it's due to high temperature. So cars left out in the sun, and it may be particular to the Lamborghini with the rake of its windshield, potentially exposing the back of the rear view mirror, back of the interior mirror, to more direct, direct sunlight than you might find in other cars where the mirror is set back in a little bit further. That, again, is kind of with a caveat that that's my basic understanding of the failure mode is due to temperature. However, I don't know. It could be that a seal breaks and you know, there's some oxygen exposures, maybe some other chemical process at work. But anyway, that's in the weeds at this point. That's kind of the high level of what's going on here. So with that explanation out of the way, though, let's get to actually swapping the mirror. One point of note before I started work, since I know that my mirror still contains some of the electrochromic gel, I went ahead and covered my console with plastic just in case. So just remember, all we are doing is we're replacing this section of the mirror. This section of the mirror. We're not having to deal with anything back here. Well, we're having to deal with stuff back here, but we're not trying to replace stuff back here. And our kind of two jobs here are to not damage anything in the interior and not do anything that would potentially cause stress to the windshield, because the windshield ain't cheap. But first thing we're going to do, though, is remove this little plastic cover here. I found you can pretty much just pinch this and it will pull kind of down. You can work it around the headliner there, and then it will pop off. You could probably pry on that lightly. If you choose to do so, please, I would encourage you to use some like Teflon instruments or something of that nature. The second thing we're going to do is actually what you would have expected, and that is we're going to remove the actual mirror from its base. Now, to do this, the technique that I have read, and I'm going to see if this actually works in practice and demonstrate it, because again, I haven't seen a good video walkthrough of this. But I'm going to tilt it down, rotate it inward. So this is kind of up like that. And then I'm going to feel behind it. Yeah, and that just pops off. All right, so now that we have the cover off and the mirror loose, we have access to these connectors that we are going to do absolutely nothing with. The problem is the bottom half of this connector would have to feed through here and out the tiny hole in the end of this bulb. So what we're going to do is we're just going to orphan the connector in here, since the mirror is trash anyway. And I'm assuming the wire harness is there. Now, if you are of high level of OCD, or you're a mechanical purist, look away now. This is going to get ugly. So as not to leave the rest of you hanging, though, to remove these things, you have to pry these sides off here, which they come off relatively easy. And then you would go in with your depinning tool, remove all of those, and feed the whole thing back out through the bulb. Now, before I reinstall my new mirror, I'm going to go ahead and replace this cover, because it's going to be easier to do this with the mirror out of the way. And it does kind of just jam in place. You want to make sure you get the wiring lined up at the top, otherwise it just clips in like so. Once you're this far, reassembly should be roughly the same as disassembly, and then you can just kind of jam this guy up here and pop him in place. Center it all up. And with our new mirror in place, we should now be able to still see what's losing without putting our console at risk of death by electrochromic schmoo. So now that we have our new mirror on the car, I thought it might be kind of fun to do a little bit of an autopsy and see what actually was coming apart with this. And you can see that that line has kind of moved there. So it still definitely has some schmoo flowing around in it, which does kind of reinforce my decision to go ahead and replace it. Anyhow, let me crack this thing open and we'll see what's inside. All right, so lots of very undelicate prying later. We have what appears to be our first layer of stuff here. So we've got our PCB with all of our stuff on it. This appears to be some kind of, it's like an adhesive foam. So this appears to have been manufactured by Donnelly Mirrors Limited. I'd have to look them up to see where they are, see where they're based. Donnelly Electronics. So if your console got ruined, Donnelly Electronics, that's who you blame. But this should, again, that's just a bezel on the front. So this is what you're looking at here. Let's see if I can get a good view of our cross section here, and we can kind of see what we're dealing with. Okay, after firing my camera's autofocus for a second, I think we can see what we've got here. So we've got two layers of glass. Got one layer here and two layers here, and those appear to be, just by the sound of it, actual glass, not polycarbonate as I suspected originally. Then you've got it where it's, there appears to be some kind of crimping or clamping here that has happened. And you can see where the electrodes for the electrochromic gel penetrate there. That's going to be the, that's the front light sensor. And then over here you have the rear light sensor. Your connector, now currently kind of unfortunate connector. And then on this side is where we had all of our problems. Now what I can't discern, or what I haven't yet discerned, I guess, is where that stuff was leaking out. Well, okay, I say that. So here is the other side of the mirror, and it definitely looks like this little section here has some more, that looks a little dirtier than the other side did, or any other corner of it for that matter. That's funny because I would have expected it. If I were going to bet on it, I would have bet on it leaking where this electrode penetrates, but that does not appear to have been the case. It seems to have just leaked. Maybe there was a bad glue seam, and I guess, yeah, because you can see right here where this is kind of like, I want to say like viscosity adhered. And sorry if that's going in and out of focus, but yeah, so definitely it's just like, I wonder if the glue they used to hold this together around the edges, I wonder if it got dissolved by the superheated gel, or possibly the glue's heat tolerance wasn't high enough. And that's what ended up causing the problem. But there you have it. Have you ever wondered what the guts of your failed or potentially failing Gallardo auto-dimming mirror look like? Now here you are. It's a little PCB, a couple of light sensors, some vibration reducing foam, and a glass sandwich of corrosive electrochromic liquid, which is held together by presumably inadequate glue or something else. Again, I don't know what I do not know again what the exact failure mode of these things are. If you are an engineer that has worked with Donnelly Electronics, specifically the auto dimming mirror division, and you have more to add to this conversation, we would love to hear it in the comments, because that's how we learn things. But otherwise, I hope everyone's enjoyed the video. I think I'm pleased to have not be so nervous about driving around my car in hot weather at this point in time, and actually be able to kind of see out the back without this weird divide in my mirror. But otherwise, yeah, if you enjoyed the video, drop me a like. If you want to see more of this, I will have a couple more things I'm doing on the Gallardo coming up, so a subscription and the bell will give you a notification on any of those videos, and they will also notify you when we are eventually back out in the world checking another racetrack off of our list. But until then, I thank you for watching. I'm Richard, this is Lap of the World, and I will see you guys all in the next video, if not at the track.